Seasonic, the power supply company, has entered the case business, and the very first product they've released is called Syncro. They sent us an absolutely enormous box, and inside that enormous box was a very large box with a power supply. And inside that inner box, we found this. I must confess, I rather like the name Seasonic Syncro.
My apologies for interrupting, but I need to point out the correct model name is Seasonic Syncro Q704 with Syncro DGC 750.
Okay, seems I have to do some further research.
Syncro Q704. Syncro is the name for this bundle. Q704. Q is for the case, 7 is for ATX full tower, 04 is the variant. This refers to the 4 fans that come pre-installed. DGC 750. D is for device, which indicates that the Connect module is included. G is 80 plus gold. C is fully cabled, as the PSU is permanently attached to the Connect module. The wattage of the power supply is indicated at the end.
All right then. And now we've cleared that up, we can take a closer look at the Seasonic Syncro Q704, although I might just call it the Q704, and we can move towards the all-important peel. For the Q704, we have the peel of uncertainty. We certainly have an outer layer of film. We're not sure what's going on inside because the glass door is secured by this clamp, best way of describing it. So we'll go for the initial peel. I said uncertain. Phew, the tension's rising. They've put this locking clamp over the film. Two Phillips screws. So now we can complete the first peel. That transportation clamp is aluminium. Don't often see that. And now we can open the door. And is there a second film? There is. It's a second peel. That looks smart. The obvious question is to ask why Seasonic has decided to get into the case business. I'm going to tear the case apart and then all will become clear. This case is a fingerprint magnet to such an extent that the accessory pack includes a pair of gloves. I'm going to use my own gloves when I tear it down. Off with the glass panel, comes off easily. 2 hinge pins there. Top filter, front filter slides out, held in place with magnets. That panel is described in some of Seasonic's literature as floating. Off with the front panel, pops off. I/O panel is on the top left in place. So we have a steel chassis, a plastic frame, aluminium panel. That is the part that picks up fingerprints like crazy. I'll come back to that. We go to the back panel. We've got this opening. We have a Seasonic logo. 2 thumb screws. Pull off with the panel. No noise deadening material, you might argue. As there's an opening, noise deadening would be a trifle superfluous. Not sure one with the other actually on that one. Here we have a pair of drive caddies. And there we have 3 SSD sleds. If I remove this thumb screw, the caddies come out. opening up that space there in front of the power supply shroud. Pull out the air filter to the front. It's a full length filter. We can see screws on the bottom, however the power supply shroud is riveted along here, so it is fixed in place. 3 120mm Nidec fans installed as standard. They run over 2000 RPM, so they're mighty beasts. 3 at the front, 1 at the rear. If you're not familiar with Nidec, you may have heard of Scythe Gentle, turn it like that so you can see it, Scythe Gentle Typhoon. If I grab this EK Furious Meltemi, which is a very recent fan, you may notice a certain resemblance, particularly when it comes to the hubs. The ventilated hub was always a feature of the Gentle Typhoons. That's it. That's the bare steel chassis. The front I/O is actually a top I/O. We have power reset, headset jacks, a pair of USB 3.0s in my world, USB 3.1 slower types in the modern world, and there is a Type C, and I know that that has been added in relatively recent times. I'll come back to that in just a moment, because the big news is this is an inverted motherboard. The bottom goes at the top goes at the bottom, and that's where the cutout is down here rather than up here. It is an inverted design. It's what Seasonic is calling R for reverse ATX. What is this panel all about? The answer is Syncro Connect. But then if you've been a regular subscriber to Kit Guru's YouTube channel, you'll already know that. If you're not by some odd chance a subscriber, subscribe now. Hit the bell button and make sure you visit kitguru.net to read our news and reviews on a regular basis. So this fella here is a plastic cable cover. Cables run down, there's a Velcro strap to keep them in place, neat and tidy. However, when we install the Connect unit, it's a completely different story. If you cast your mind back to the video I did about Connect a few months ago now, 3 as I recall, 1 or 2 of the comments said something along the lines of I'd used the Lian Leo 11 dynamic case for that build to demonstrate the Connect, and they said, oh, I think you're using the wrong case there. There should be a case that's dedicated to the purpose of Connect. Well, this is that case. So apart from that, we have the mounts in place for it. In addition, we have the inverted motherboard tray, which ought to sort out the cable runs nicely. That at least is the object of the exercise, and that's going to be a significant part of this review. I'm looking forward to seeing how this side of the case comes together. The next step is going to be installing the power supply and Connect unit and seeing how it all looks. But first, a little bit of a history lesson. I've made reference to a couple of the features of this case, and the fact of the matter is I've seen a very similar case to this one before, because Seasonic sent us a prototype in December 2019, make sure I get my years right, a week or 3 before we went off to CES 2020, and it gladdens my heart that the case looks fundamentally similar to the one I saw back then. I don't know how many prototypes sent out to how many hardware reviewers. I doubt I was the only one, put it that way. And they've made various changes. For example, the case I saw back then did not have USB-C. The glass panel was a tight fit on the hinges. Also, the hinge pins were equal length, which means you had to line up the glass door and get both hinges lined up simultaneously. They've now changed it. One pin is slightly longer than the other, so you can line up the one and then the other as it drops into place. The glass door didn't have any sort of locking mechanism. I suggested a screw at the front, as we've seen. Fantex has used the same approach, and in fact, as you've seen, they have this clamp that comes around the side, so it achieves the same end in a different way. That works for me. The drive caddy here, the original was an absolute swine. Removing it involved you slackening off screws from the bottom, yanking off the whole thing, and then you had to separate the caddies after that and reinstall. Now, I am going to say things aren't perfect yet, because the 2 caddies are connected together. So you have the bottom sled, caddy connects to that, it's got a screw, that connects to that. So if you want to remove one caddy, you have to remove the tower before you can gain access to a drive. That's not ideal. There are no separate drive sleds going into the caddies. That's slightly vexing, but the prototype was far harder work than that, so improvements have been made. Also, the sample I received didn't have any fans installed. I was told back then they were looking at high quality fans. They weren't specific as to which brand. Nidec we've got. Nidec, very pleased to see. We can ignore the unusual wires on the Nidec fans. This is a pre-production sample. This is not representative of the retail part. Perhaps the biggest change that Seasonic made from the prototype I saw to this case here is that the motherboard tray has been significantly rejigged. When I put an E80X board in the prototype, it was too tight. That was all there was to it. It kind of sat in this recess here. The recess wasn't large enough. The cutouts for the cables were all wrong. It was very much a prototype, but nonetheless, it had clearly been in development for some time at that stage, and that was December 19. So here we are, very nearly a year later, and I'm very much looking forward to putting some hardware inside this case. Processor is an AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. Motherboard ASRock B550 Extreme 4. CPU cooler is a Fractal Design Celsius S36. That's a 360mm in the roof of the case. Memory 32GB Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4 3600MHz. Graphics card is a Gigabyte RTX 2080 Super Gaming OC. When you consider the Q704 is such an unusual case, the build went together in a very straightforward manner, and it looks absolutely fine. The burning question throughout this review has to be, why on earth do you want to use an inverted motherboard with the Connect power supply system? It all boils down to this short power cable here that comes through the panel and connects directly to the motherboard. That pretty much defines the Q704 and Connect. If you like it, you like it. If you don't understand it, then you're not interested. To me, that is the dividing line. However, there is a more subtle dividing line for me, which is the licorice power cables. This system is crying out for aftermarket cables, properly combed custom cables. Now, whether you should go to another company and get those cables, or whether you should get them through Seasonic, whether they should come with the power supply, I'm not sure about that. This case is already expensive. If you start adding on extra cables, it's going to get horribly expensive. But I am absolutely clear in my own mind, these cables do not finish this build off successfully. Beyond that, what's the system like to use? Well, we got noise levels. I tested the system in two configurations, with the fans running at 100% and with the fans running at 50%. These Nidecs are rated at 2150 RPM, so full speed is a thing, half speed is still pretty blimmin' fast. First, we'll go for 50%. And now it's time for full speed. And truth be told, full speed, while it's certainly audible, is a lot less noisy than I expected. It is quite remarkable how quality fans make a difference. These fans are good fans, of that I have absolutely no doubt. So what about thermals? Well, this is a funny old situation. I've deliberately used exactly the same hardware that I recently used in the Fractal Design Meshify 2 so I can do a back-to-back comparison, and the thermals are okay. They're not brilliant, but they're okay. But where things get weird is that when I slowed the fans down from 100% to 50%, the CPU thermals improved very slightly. Not a lot in it, but they improved. My feeling is that the air coming in the front is immediately whipping up to the roof, so the top front fan and possibly the middle front fan aren't doing a lot. I tried a test run with those fans disconnected. It didn't help temperatures, but it didn't make a lot of difference. So this setup as it stands, I'm not at all sure about it. What I'm particularly not sure about is the graphics card. It looks wrong having the fans facing the exhaust fans directly above. Graphics card temperatures, absolutely fine, so there's no conclusive evidence there, but this case feels to me like it wants a custom liquid cooling build with a liquid cooled graphics card. At that stage, I think things would make more sense. In other words, we're looking at a very specialized case and power supply system. The price is certainly rather scary. We're looking at £350 for the entirety for the Q704 with the Connect power supply. This 750 watt version of the Connect power supply system is on sale at about £200. That's on pre-sale. We've got dollar pricing for the entire case power supply assembly. That works out to a UK price of £350. So the Q704 case with the 4 fans, about £150. Take out the 4 fans and you have the Q700 bare case. Maybe that's £110. In other words, we're talking serious money without it being absolutely eye-watering. It's certainly interesting, it's built well, it's got plenty of features, it's novel. If you simply have no interest in the Q704 and Connect power supply, I fully understand. On the other hand, if you're looking at this thinking to yourself, yup, I can do something with this, this is the basis of something special, I also entirely understand that. As a first go for Seasonic, this case is impressive. It's far from perfect, but it's certainly interesting, it does work well, and my biggest gripe, those power supply cables. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. In fact, I hope you've done that already, and make sure you head over to kitguru.net to read our news and reviews.